tell me a little bit about your family's union history.
My name is Scott Sanquist. I grew up here in the Mahoning Valley in Austintown here in College Park. I am 3 generations union on both sides. My grandfather was a Teamster after World War II under Jimmy Hoffa. My other grandfather was a member of the Painters Union. He worked out of the hall during the day, and then at night he worked for the Fraternal Order of Police. He was a deputy underneath Sheriff Jim Trafficant. My father worked at General Motors for 30 years. My brother's also a current UAW member. My mother, Marianne, she was a member of the UFCW. She worked for Sparkle for 15 years. I'm a member of the Laborers Local 125 and Ironworkers Local 207. The union for 3 generations of my family has given us a good way of life to be able to even afford a college education, to be able to do home improvements, to be able to have Christmas gifts underneath the tree, to family vacations, you name it. It has created financial independence in our futures to where we are able to afford a new vehicle. We are able to, like I said, things like home improvements, vacations, things of that matter, new school shoes, clothes, your kids participating in athletics, you name it. That it's given us that financial independence.
My name's Glenn, Glenn, last name's Johnson, Johnsson, UAW Local 1112, Lordstown, Ohio. That's the Auto Workers Union, United Auto Workers. Been a member for almost 50 years. Started in 1977, September of 1977, and retired actively in 2018. And 18 years of union leadership, all on the executive side of the union, 6 years as vice president, and 6 years as president, and then retiring ultimately in 2018. Everything that I have in my life is because I'm a union member. Simply because the opportunity presented itself, and General Motors gave me a job, but the union gave me a life. Union membership means to me is being part of the team. And every player's got to play their position, and every player's got to have input and be heard to be able to be part of that team.
My name is Glenn Hall. I'm on the executive board for the American Federation of Government Employees Local 3448. Union membership means to me a secure working environment where I don't have to be fearful of just going about my job and having to justify myself. I feel like I'm able to be more competent and more autonomous in my work. I also feel that the extra money that I get from being a union member and getting higher wages is quite important.
Yeah, my name is Sean Posey. That's Seanposey is the last name. I'm currently a librarian at the Public Library of Youngstown and the Mahoning Valley, and I'm in the Librarians Union called PLAY, and it's part of SEIU. So I've been in there for about 3 years now, but years ago I did work in the United Food and Commercial Workers Union too. Yeah, I do have a, probably not surprisingly for somebody from this area, I do have a family labor history, not involving the steel industry. My father's father was a butcher and was a shop steward and was a big union guy and was involved in the political aspect of it, probably because he was a shop steward. But there was a very, big labor history there. My other grandfather on my mother's side was a postal worker. And he had commented that after 1970, there's a big postal worker strike during the Nixon administration, and it was basically because postal workers really had, unlike today where they have pretty good pay and benefits, it was really kind of a precarious existence. And famously during the strike, Nixon tried to bring in the National Guard and have them sort the mail during the strike, which did not work out well. So eventually the strike was settled, but he realized that strike ended up giving him the kind of good pension benefits that he had when he retired, and he could go to Florida for a few months a year and stuff that would have been absolutely unimaginable for, say, his father's era. I mean, that was, you weren't going to Florida, you weren't going to have any vacation really, and you certainly weren't going to have a good pension.
Because of the financial independence, we were able to afford a good life. Kids always had we always had new clothes, we always had Christmas gifts underneath the tree, we always had nice new vehicles to drive. We always were able to do the home improvements we wanted. We were always able to do the things we wanted to do. We were able to pursue the hobbies we wanted to pursue. For obviously the hobby that my family's involved in, it's not a very cheap hobby. We've pursued the hobby for 50 years, auto racing. It's not a very cheap hobby, but we were able to because we were a part of a union.
My father was an auto worker at the GM Lordstown plant for years and years and years. Being a union member helped him to come back from Vietnam, get a secure and stable job, raise a family, and take care of them. And there were several times he's told me stories where the boss would be making unreasonable asks, and in a non-union shop he would have been fired for saying no. But he was able to say no and refuse these unreasonable asks and maintain a secure position and maintain pay to help raise his family.
I am in a union now, which is, becoming much more unusual even in this area. But, being a part of a union, obviously there are union politics and all of a sudden all other things at play. But there's a degree of certainty and security knowing that, it's not just you and you alone, facing off against your employer if there's something that comes up over work rules or pay or benefits at work. You've got somebody else to help you bargain.
I don't have to feel like I'm alone. I feel secure with my coworkers. It helps me know that we're all pulling the same way. And when I go to talk to management, I'm not going alone. I'm going with my coworkers, and I'm going with people whose job it is to protect me. That really is a peace of mind when I go throughout my day. I know that I can trust myself and trust those around me.
First off, it gives you the ability to be part of something for the greater cause. And the average rank and file person probably doesn't get that. They don't think that they're part of a bigger picture. But we're actually a social movement. We have the ability to change things through our presence, through our activism and our energy, and at the ballot box. We can change things, and standing together and having a voice of one gives us power in all those entities.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that what end up becoming looked at as good jobs, like in the 50s and 60s and 70s in the steel industry, were not good jobs previous to there being a union. In fact, they were horrible jobs. Not only were they extremely dangerous and you had to work long hours, but the pay was very low. And the steel industry was, the amount of men who died in a given year or were maimed was very high. So a lot of that is really reversed by the union. All of the pay and benefits packages that steel workers end up getting in the 50s and 60s, like a decent amount of time off, health care, pension and all that, previously they did not have any of that. And the same goes for auto jobs before United Auto Workers, trucking jobs before the Teamsters, same thing. The jobs that people consider good jobs, especially like in manufacturing and blue-collar industries, were not good jobs previous to the existence of organized unions. It's quite the opposite.
If we let this go, we're not going to have the financial independence that we've had for 3 or 4 generations that the people before us fought for. A lot of things they don't talk about in schools is the labor wars.
In 1916, late 1915, early 1916, there was a big strike involving Youngstown Sheet and Tube and Republic Steel in and around Youngstown and East Youngstown, which is today called Camel area. And company guards fired on some workers and killed some of them. And the workers responded by essentially burning down the business district of East Youngstown. So right in 1933, 1934, there's a giant strike wave. in America. And it's also a violent strike wave too. There's probably like 100 workers killed during that time period in strikes across the United States. And here, that ends up with the Little Steel Strike of 1936. So especially Republic Steel was a very anti-union company. And instead of agreeing to meet with the workers and organize the mills in Youngstown, they actually start bringing in scabs. They also start flying in by plane supplies and weapons. So Youngstown Sheet and Tube starts buying like grenades and machine guns and all these things, like literally preparing for war. Down on Poland Avenue, some Republic Sheet and Tube Company guards fired on a crowd, including women and children, and killed a number of people. And there was a huge shootout between the strikers and the company guards there.
Many people died so we could have a lunch break, so we could have medical, so we could have dental, so we could have the benefits that we have and make the wages we have.
You know, a lot of people aren't very familiar with this history. And, you know, it may seem to them that the negative aspects of unions are, you know, all there is, and that, oh, yeah, you know, I'd be better off if I didn't pay union dues or whatever, and I wasn't at a union shop. But history really does not give much support to that argument.
Hey, we can't give up this fight. We all got to be in this together, or there will be no more middle class. It'll be over.
I would say that that would be the equivalent of you jump out of a plane with a parachute and you pull the parachute and you land. You get back in the plane, they go to hand you the parachute and you go, oh, I don't need the parachute. I survived the last time.
And when you're thinking about, you know, people who are working, people who don't own capital and they're basically getting their money from working for an hourly wage or for a salary, really the only thing they have to bargain with against capital, especially with huge companies today, are labor unions. And of course, you know, a lot of people that you mentioned might point out that there's a long history of, you know, labor unions having troubles and corruptions and problematic politics, and all that is true. But at the end of the day, I don't think workers really have a better bargaining chip when it comes to dealing with their employers than they do with labor unions. Nothing certainly has emerged yet that I can think of.
My advice to the naysayers is, you know, take a good hard look at why you're doing it. Is it just because you have a grudge, or is it just because, you know, you don't believe in unions, or somebody's talked you off of that? But leadership is not always to be trusted in unions, but they are there and they're held accountable by the membership, and they're elected by the membership, and all elections have consequences. So the only way to change anything is to get involved, speak your piece, go to your meetings, and vote.
Don't forget, before unions, remember the images of people, literally miners in cages. Remember child labor. All of this was coming. It's already coming back. Your boss is not your friend. He's not your family. Whatever he's promising you now, you know, what guarantee do you have that, you know, whether they increase pay or something, or they claim to do, and they say, oh, see what we do for you? The only reason they have to do this is because the union is there. Without the union, what is stopping them from going back to that?
One brother told me a long time ago, he says, if I take my hand and I put it out like that, and you want to snap my fingers, you could probably pretty easily do that. But if I put them like this, and we're all together, it's a lot harder to do it.
I know that maybe there's something, you know, there's problems with the unions, but if you have a problem with the union, you get involved in your union and you can make it stronger. That's what makes it a union. The union is you.
One of the biggest things that I've always said, if unions were so bad for workers, why do companies fight so hard to keep them out? You know, if it were true, just bring them in. Let them screw up the employees just like you think they're going to, and screw over the employees like the management thinks they're going to, and you wouldn't have any issues. But the real truth behind the matter is unions are good for workers. They give them a voice in the workplace, they give them a seat at the table, and they give them a right to have their contract enforced.
What the union's doing is protecting your future. So one day, 30 years down the road, you can walk away with something, an annuity plan, a pension, a hospitalization after you retire.
All I know is that by being a union member, I've had the ability to live the American dream. You know, I've been able to get married, buy a home, send our daughter to college, and retire with dignity.
My mother fell ill and had to go on disability, and I got a hold of the union hall and I says, Mom, I says, you got to be vested. You have 15 years in the UFCW working at Sparkle. I called up the hall and they said, yeah, she's entitled to her pension. Come down here and get her $600 a month. And that's life. As little as that sounds to some people, that's kind of life-changing. I mean, who couldn't use $600 more a month? That pays their rent.
I'm now retired, and I play in a retirees golf league with about 80 of my union brothers. And I don't go there because it's the nicest golf course in the country. I don't go there because they're the best golfers in the world. I go there simply for the camaraderie and the legacy that was set before me. These are gentlemen in their 70s and 80s that were in leadership long before I ever thought about becoming a leader. And it's just a pleasure to be around them, to know that they have your back. The brotherhood is second to none. You just can see somebody and you know that you need to go talk to them. And I talk around the country a lot and to a lot of UAWs, and I'm never, ever alone in a room full of UAW members. We're family, we're brothers.